Thank you for joining us for this presentation on an introduction to the Magento Marketplace EQP API. I'm Mike Weiss. I'm the lead developer for this API, and I've been part of the Magento Marketplace team for almost 4 years. My goal for this webinar is to show you the essentials and how you can start using this API. And we have 4 different topics that we'll cover to achieve this goal. The first one is to understand what is this API. The second topic is I'll introduce the Sandbox environment. The third topic is where we'll spend most of our time. It's talking about API access keys, and these really are the starting point of using the API. And it's in this section that I'll also show 2 different demos. And then finally, we'll wrap up with how you can find and get additional help. And then at the end of the webinar, we can have a question and answer session too. So what is this thing? The Magento Marketplace EQP API provides access to the Marketplace Developer Portal. So what does that mean? Magento is a framework. It's a platform for building online stores. There's a lot of great features that come out of the box, but it's also highly customizable. And it's in this customizable area that people build extensions. Where you find the extensions is at the Magento Marketplace. So the Magento Marketplace is like an app store. For extensions that are on the marketplace, they've all passed through something called the EQP. EQP stands for Extension Quality Program, and it includes automated and manual reviews of any of the submissions of the extensions that want to get on to the store. The goal of EQP is to give the buyer the assurance of quality. Now, if you wanted to create or to develop extensions for Magento, where you would go is something called the Marketplace Developer Portal. And it's here that you would upload your code as well as add any additional information about it. And then eventually you'd submit it where what you're submitting it into is this extension quality program. Once it passes that, then you get put on to your extension gets put onto the marketplace. So the key takeaways is that there is a Magento marketplace. This is like an app store. In this presentation, I'll most likely refer to this just as the store. Where you go to submit your extensions is the Marketplace Developer Portal. In this presentation, I'll end up using the term dev portal. And then the overall topic for this whole presentation is the Magento Marketplace EQP API. Because we're already in the context of Magento, the actual name for this API is just the Marketplace EQP API. But in this presentation, I'll refer to it as simply the API. For people who want to see things more than just hear about them, I have a screen snapshot of the Magento Marketplace. Again, this is the App Store. I went to this URL and I clicked on extensions. And then at the store, you can see that there's plenty of different ways that you can search for extensions. On this particular snapshot, you can see 4. There's a lot more. In fact, there's over 3,000. If you were choosing to create or to develop extensions, where you would go is to the developer portal or the dev portal. And then this is just a screenshot of the landing page. So where the API fits, it's this previous picture that we just saw, the dev portal. The dev portal user interface is actually the first customer or client of the API. The API talks to something called the EQP API server. we're not really going to talk much about that, but you can correctly guess that it's the API server that helps coordinate this whole EQP program. And then again, once you've passed through the EQP program, then your extension would get placed onto the marketplace, the store. The intended audience for this API is the developer. And it's specifically a developer who makes extensions for Magento, wants to sell those extensions on the Magento marketplace. The API also has endpoints that you can use to get information about how your sales are going. So, certainly that could still be that same developer. It could also be a business partner, or somebody maybe more in marketing or in sales to help understand what's going on. So some of the specific things you can do with the API is you can submit your individual or company profile. And what this is it's your online presence. It's like a business card, if you will, for the marketplace store. And it's here where you reveal your name or your company's name, an email, maybe address, some sort of short description or biography of who or what your company is all about. Through the API, you can also upload the actual code of your extension, and we'll see how to do this in our second demo. You can supply information about marketing content, and marketing content involves things such as your pricing, descriptions, guides, any pictures or icons that you want to use to visually represent your extension. Because your extension is extending Magento for the technical side, some of the aspects of technical information involve revealing which versions of Magento your extension's compatible with. Another example of technical information would be any sort of licensing information. And then finally, the API can give access to reports. It can certainly return these automated or manual reviews of your extension. We'll also have some sales information of how your extension's doing, and then also some information just about overall metrics from the store, like page views. So where to use this API? I'll end up showing this slide at the very end of the presentation, and then hopefully there it will make more sense. I wanted to show this just as more of a map of where we're about to go. So we've seen a screenshot of the developer portal. So this is the URL to get to that user interface. There's a API base URL that corresponds to that. And we'll see the use of this in this first demo that I'll show. And everybody has access to the production API. There is actually a sandbox environment, and in our very next topic that we're about to go into, I'll explain a little bit more about the sandbox. I want to just show you what the URL is, and then the corresponding API base URL. And in that second demo, I'll show a little bit more about the sandbox. But first, we'll talk about the sandbox. And since I showed you a picture of it ended up being the production developer portal, this is a picture of the landing page of the Sandbox developer portal. And it actually looks exactly the same. We do put a big red banner over every page of the Sandbox. And if you were to read the words inside of the banner, you'll find out that it says, hey, I'm the Sandbox. And just in case you actually don't want to be on the Sandbox and would rather be on the production, it gives you a direct link to where the production developer portal is. So some of the basic characteristics of the Sandbox. For the Sandbox, we're actually limiting it just to Adobe partners. And what we envision the usage of the Sandbox to be is more of a CI/CD, the continuous integration, continuous delivery, kind of a pre-submission testing service so that you can get access to the automated testing piece of the whole EQP process. And then the goal of that is so that when you bring your extension over to production, you have a lot easier time, a lot faster time to get your submission into production and onto the actual marketplace store. As we saw, that every page is going to have a big red banner on it, and then how you actually log into the Sandbox developer portal, it's the exact same credentials as what you have and what you use in production. There are some behavioral differences between Sandbox and production. First of all, there's no manual reviews. The second is that there's no Magento Marketplace store that's actually connected to the Sandbox dev portal. You do get almost all the automated reviews, and the only automated review you do not get is the copy-paste detector. You do get all the automated marketing review checks. And then right now, when you do log into the Sandbox, you're going to have to rebuild your profile, and specifically what you'll need to do is recapture your vendor name. So we're working on an improvement there, but as of this webinar, as of today, you'll have to rebuild your profile. So that's everything that I wanted to talk about at the Sandbox. This actually covers the second topic. And so this third topic of today's webinar, and we're going to spend the lion's share of time right here, is to talk about something called API access keys. And the API access keys is how you get access to use the API. And the purpose of getting an API access key is to create a session token. So API access keys are going to be long-lived, and a session token is relatively short-lived. And we'll see an example where a session token is only available for 2 hours. API access keys are completely and totally self-serviced from the UI. So what does that mean? So that means you go to either the production dev portal and or the Sandbox dev portal, you log into the user interface, and from there, and I'll show you where to go, but from there you choose if you even want to use the API. So you choose, when you want to create API access keys, depending on how your security people are in your group, you might have to rotate or regenerate those keys. So you have complete control of how to do that. At some point in the future, you might decide that you no longer want to participate using the API, so you can delete your keys. And again, in the demos, specifically demo 1, I'll show you how to do that kind of stuff. There are some distinctions between the API access keys between production and Sandbox. When you create an API access key in the production dev portal, that only will work in production. Likewise, if you can create or regenerate API access keys in Sandbox, that only works in Sandbox. So that those API access keys do not cross over into either of those environments. A consequence of that is because the whole purpose of API access keys is to create a session token, is that API access keys from production, when you create a session token, that session token can only work in production. And likewise, in Sandbox, those API access keys, when they create a session token, the Sandbox session tokens they can only work in Sandbox. So I'll show you, these are some screenshots, and in the first demo, we'll review this. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a foreshadowing, you need to be logged in. You know, in this case, we're in production because you do not see the big red banner. From your name, you can choose either account information or marketplace profile. You go down to manage API keys, and then there's a push button, create API access key. When you push this, you'll be prompted for a name. That name is simply for your own use. It's something that might be meaningful to you. And the reason we do that is you can create up to 3 API access keys. In this case, I'd pressed the key. I name mine my first access key, which in all honesty, that's probably not the greatest name. And then you can see that an access key has 2 pieces, an app ID or application ID and an app secret. You can see where you regenerate. You can see where you can delete the key too. I want to show you a picture of what happens if you're not eligible. So everybody's eligible on production. So by default, therefore, you'd have to be on Sandbox. So again, we'd log in, we'd choose either of these first 2 options. We go down to manage API access keys, and then you do not get the push button to create an API access key, and instead you see its 2-sentence paragraph that invites you to at least consider becoming an Adobe technical partner. So we're going to go into some demos. And this first demo, what we're going to do is get an API access key from production. We'll create a session token, and then we'll go ahead and we'll start using the API itself. And in this case, it's the user's resource, and all we're going to do is access the profile. So this is a pre-recorded demo. Hopefully the volume on your side is good. In order to use the Marketplace EQP API, we first need to get access keys. I'm signed in to the production developer portal. By default, I'm thrown into the extensions screen. But to get to the access keys, I click on my name. I can go to either the account information or the market profile. Under here, I want to choose Manage API Keys. Right now, I have no API keys, but I can create one. All I need to do is give it a name. This name is simply for myself. When I hit enter, then I can see that some API keys have been generated for me. I can do this up to 3 times. API keys are totally self-managed, so I can choose if I even want to participate in using the API. I can choose how often I want to regenerate. I can choose when I want to delete access to the API. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use this set. I'm going to flip over to a command prompt and I'm going to use a helpful program that will generate for me the actual Perl command that we're going to use. This first set was my app ID, and the second set is my app secret. I'm going to flip back to the UI screen. So the app ID started with FG, and then the app secret was IE. Flipping back to the command prompt, we're going to do a post. We have the app ID, colon, then the app secret. We're going to pass in that we're going to use JSON. We're going to ask for a session token. And then finally, we're going to point it to that production API URL and use REST v1 at session token. Go ahead and grab this and execute it. This will come back with some information. Kind of hard to see what just happened. I'm going to highlight it, copy it, and go to Formatter. And then here it's a little bit easier to see that we got back 3 pieces of information. We have our Magento ID, the user session token, and when it expires. This expiry time is in terms of seconds. So 7,200 seconds is 2 hours. The whole purpose of getting access keys is to generate a session token. We're going to jump back to the command prompt. We're going to go ahead and grab this session token. And then this next command, what we're going to use is we're going to use the session token as our bearer token as part of our authorization header. We're going to issue a GET, and then we're going to point it to this particular endpoint. So again, we're using the production URL, REST v1 users, and then we give it our mage ID. And then when we issue this command here, what we'd expect back is our profile. Again, this is a little bit hard to see what got returned to us. So I'll copy and paste that into the processor for the JSON. And we can see that we've gotten back some profile information. The Magento ID is repeated. You can see our first, last name, email, and then some other information. For me, I actually did not flesh out most of my profile, and so therefore you can see that a lot of these fields are defaulted to being empty. So again, the whole purpose of getting an access key from that is to get a session token. The whole purpose of getting a session token is to go ahead and start using the session token so we can drive the different REST API endpoints. That's everything that I wanted to show you. Okay, so that was the first demo. That was just real basic type stuff. The second demo shows the more practical usage of the access key, getting a session token. In this case, we're going to upload a zip file, and we're going to then associate that zip file to an existing version of an extension that I have. And in this case, what I'm using is the Sandbox. In this demo, we'll use the Marketplace EQP API to do a file upload, and then we'll associate that file upload to an existing extension. I'm already signed in to the Sandbox developer portal. I know it's the Sandbox because there's a huge red banner, and in the red banner it says Sandbox. If I go to the profile section and I click on Manage API Keys, I can see that I've already went ahead and generated a set of API keys, and we'll be using these in just a few moments to create a session token. I also want to show that I've started to create an extension, and more specifically, a version of that extension. And that version is identified by something called a submission ID. And it is true that we have not yet even submitted anything yet. Nonetheless, the ID is called a submission ID. For more information about this, one of the things I want to show is that we currently do not have any code package associated with this version. To find out more information about the API, and I'll show specifically the two resources that we'll be using, when you're logged in, you can go to the Learn section and click on API. And I'm going to go ahead and expand this. This is our developer documentation, also known as the dev docs. And at first, what we're going to do is use a resource called the Files resource. And what we're going to do is upload a file. We'll talk a little bit about the structure of the payload. And when you upload a file, what you get back from the API is something called a file upload ID. With that file upload ID, we'll use an endpoint just to see some of the fun facts about that file. And then what we're going to do is we're going to associate that file to our extension. And in the API, we call the extensions and versions of the extensions, we call that all packages. So I'll do a get on that submission ID. Oops. Use this endpoint here. And then what we'll use is we'll update that extension, and we're going to use a slight variation of the update, and in Rust that's called a put. And instead of using the JSON payload, instead of directly supplying it, we'll supply it through a file. So then jump back here because we're going to use that first. For the payload for the file, this is just standard internet payload stuff for file uploads. You get to choose your own boundary marker. And what you do is whatever you choose for your boundary marker, you want to make sure that string does not appear in the file that you're actually uploading. So you always put 2 dashes, then whatever your string is, then you'll have these headers, and these headers are actually embedded inside of the payload. And one thing to notice is that you specify the content type of whatever the file is that you're embedding inside this payload. So since we're going to do a zip file versus application/zip, one of the things about our REST endpoints for the Marketplace EQP API is we always use name equals file, and then this is the array notation. This is just a square brackets, open and close. So when to finish off the payload, you still repeat, the string that starts it all off, and then you just end it with the double dash. So I'll go ahead and I'll edit what this payload looks like. Most of this stuff is just the zip file, it's just the binary content. But here's the things at the beginning. If we jump to the very bottom, you can see that we have at the bottom header or footer. All right. So then what we're going to do is we're going to first generate a session token. And what we need is the two pieces of our access key. I have a little program that I use simply to make sure that my control command is built correctly. So all this is a post. You put the ID secret. We're asking for a session token. And then through all these examples in this demo, we're always going to be specifying the Sandbox base URL. This portion here is our session token. And then what we'll do is we're going to end up doing a post, which is a create. We'll replay our session token as the authorization header. We're adding another header. This is the overall content type of the payload that we're sending. It's always going to be multi-part / form data, and then the boundary, and then this is our boundary that we chose. You can choose whichever boundary string that you want. And then just how curl works, the data binary says whatever the file is I'm about to tell you, then don't mess with it. Don't try to do anything fancy. And then this is this file payload that I showed you when we looked at the binary content. And then again, we're passing it to the base URL of the dev portal sandbox. And then the endpoint we're going after is REST v1 files uploads. So this is again going to upload our file, and what we get back is some content. It's a little bit hard to see. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to put it through a formatter just to show what this looks like. And the main thing is this file upload ID. And then I uploaded a zip file. So we're going to grab this file upload ID, and flip back here. Works. I'm going to grab session token. Maybe grab session token. All right. So then what we're going to do is all I'm going to try to do is we're going to do a get. So we're going to retrieve some information. We pass in our header so it identifies who we are, passing it to the dev portal sandbox. And then we're using the REST v1 files uploads, which is exactly that same endpoint we used when we did our post. This time we're going to append on the file upload ID. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to see if we can get some information about our file upload itself. So again, this is a little bit hard to read. So we'll pass it through another JSON processor. And we see that again, it just repeats some of the information. One of the things to realize is that we pass for the Dev Portal API server, it always passes whatever you upload through a malware scanner. And that malware scanner is going to run asynchronous. In this case, it ran relatively quickly. Depending on the load on the system, this could take several minutes. Part of the API, which is not part of this demo at all, is a callback where you could, if you were having a program that was running, then what you could do is you could register a callback so you'd know exactly when this malware passed. So anyway, what we're now going to do is we're going to associate this file upload to the package or to this extension right here. So I'm going to come right back to there. Need to grab the session token. I'm going to flip back. I'm going to grab the submission ID. And then what I'm going to do at first is to do a get. So we're going to retrieve some information. First, we pass in our authorization header that identifies who we are. I'm going to pass it into the Dev Portal Sandbox. And now instead of talking to the files endpoint, we're talking to the products packages. And this is how the REST API knows about extensions. And more specifically, this is a version. So this identifier here is the submission ID that we just grabbed from that particular version. So when I execute this, then what's going to happen is we're just going to get a bunch of information back from the file, from the packages endpoint. And pass this through formatter. And so now what we're seeing is information about that specific version. And you can see that I've actually already specified some compatibility, have a short description. The part that we're going to influence is this thing called an artifact. And what we're going to do is we're going to associate that zip file to this particular version. So we're going to do that. Is we need to go ahead and we're going to grab our file upload ID. And I have a JSON structure mostly written. And I'm going to paste in that file upload ID. And so we're going to pass this JSON structure to the version through that products packages endpoint. And all this is trying to say, let me flip back to the, all we're trying to say is, hey, artifact part of you, we're going to associate this file upload ID to you. And then this other piece, by default, the action is just going to be draft, but I just wanted to show that you can specify multiple things. What draft does is it just keeps us in the same workflow state that we're in. The main point, though, of this payload is to do this artifact. All right. Oops. Waste my time here. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do an update, which in REST is a put. We're going to, of course, pass in our authorization header that just defines who we are. Because we're going to do an update and we're going to specify, we're going to give that JSON payload, we're going to add another header, the content type. We're just going to say that we're going to give the content that the payload that we're going to pass in is a JSON structure. And that's mostly what our REST API deals with. We've seen this before. This is the binary data. This says I'm just going to pass in a file. In curl, don't do anything with it. Just pass it in as is. So this was this file that we just updated with the file upload ID. And again, we're going to pass it in through the dev portal sandbox. And then we're going to use the REST v1 products packages. And we're going to specifically say, hey, so for this version of this extension, we're going to update the association of the file. Before I do this, I want to just jump back. I'm going to go to where this is. I'm going to hit refresh. We're going to see there's nothing there. I'm going to jump back. We're going to go ahead and execute this statement. And then one of the things that happens, we'll grab this guy. We're about to wrap this all up. One of the things to see is that now the artifact portion of this version is now filled out. And specifically, it's filled out with our file upload that we did. And I'm going to jump. I'm just going to go to our UI. I'm going to hit refresh. And then you'll see that we actually have this zip file associated to this version. That's everything that I wanted to show you. We did file upload, and then we associated it with this specific version. All right, so that completes the second demo. And then in our final topic for this webinar, I just wanted to show some places where you could get additional help. And we've seen in that second demo specifically something called the developer docs. And we saw how to get access to it if you're logged in. And I'll show a quick screenshot just in case you missed that piece. You can go directly to the dev docs. This is a QR code if you wanted to use that to also go there. And I encourage you to go to the dev docs first. We really spent some time trying to develop those out, trying to anticipate what some questions would be. Of course, you know, eventually you're going to say like, hey, what if I need some more specific help? We do have a Slack channel in the Magento Community Engineering workspace. We already have a channel called the Marketplace EQP API. I want to show two screenshots of how you can easily get to those dev docs. If you're not signed in yet, there's an API link at the very top banner. And this is true of both the production developer portal, which is this screenshot, or even the Sandbox dev portal. So you can do that. In that second demo, we saw that, I'd already been logged in. You go to the Learn section, and then the API link is this one. So let's go there. Kind of also, I showed in that second demo, when I expanded the dev docs, you could see that there's a whole bunch of different topics. In the demos that we just saw, we covered the authentication resource. This is how you get a session token. That first demo, we saw just a brief use of the users resource, and this deals all with your profile. In that second demo, we dealt with the files resource. We dealt with the packages when we associated that file with the package. Things I did not show in these demos, there's a test results. These are the automated and the manual reviews. It's how you get access to those. The reports is a section that shows a little bit broader. It does reference the test results ones, but it also shows how you can get access to your sales data as well as information about your web pages. And then in the second demo, I mentioned a callback. This is one of the uses would be to learn exactly when your malware passed if you did a file upload, and then you can learn more about that. And then these topics are on this menu ribbon on this left-hand side. There are two additional topics specifically for the API. Filtering is when you do a get, when you retrieve information, and this is how you can help narrow down and fine-tune your searching. And then we also have a section on error handling. Unfortunately, invariably, you'll come across some errors, and it's just a section detailing how to discover those and how to handle those, or at least understand when errors happen. As part of this overall presentation, I covered some portions that were in the introduction, some stuff about getting started. The Sandbox was that second topic that we talked about, and the API access keys was just this previous topic. So, in conclusion, what did we learn about the API today? We learned that there is a Sandbox environment. It's only available to Adobe partners, but if you're eligible, I'd encourage you to use it. We did spend a lot of time about API access keys, and again, these are the starting point for using the Marketplace EQP API, and they're completely self-service, so you don't need to contact any member of the Marketplace team. You choose if you want to participate, when to rotate or regenerate those keys, and when you want to delete them, no longer participate. And then finally, this section, or the section right before this, was about help, about the dev docs. There is a Slack channel. I went ahead and repeated the QR code. And then my last slide, I promised that I would repeat a certain slide, and this is that slide that I'm repeating. So hopefully this makes a lot more sense. The production dev portal URL, and this is again where you would go to, among other things, to get your API access keys for the production side. And then we saw in that first demo the use of the production dev portal API base URL. In the second demo, I went to the Sandbox user interface. And then in that second demo also was the use of the Sandbox API base URLs. So that concludes everything that I wanted to say. I believe we might have some time if there's any questions and answers. Hopefully I might be able to supply some answers.
Thank you, Mike. So right now it's no question in our chat, so guys, please feel free to ask them in our Blue Jeans. We can wait a while for that.
And again, if you don't have any questions right now, that's completely fine. Hopefully those dev docs will help, and then we'll be available in the Slack channel also. So,
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, thank you, Mike, for this demo, for sharing this information. As I can see, no questions right now. So guys, really please feel free to join our Slack channel and ask us there. Thank
yeah,
you,
and
Mike, for the presentation.
sure. And on behalf of the Magento Marketplace team, we all want to thank you for participating today, and we do hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.